Good morning and welcome back to Fresh from Maryland, a series from Maryland Snap Ed, all about the wonderful things coming from Maryland farms and farmers markets during the season and other places in the community where you can get local food. So if this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you've been here with us before, welcome back. As always, we love when folks introduce themselves in the comments with your county, if you're from in Maryland, if you're from outside of Maryland, your city and state. And I am watching here on good welcome Lisa. I just realized I could figure out a way where I can see who is joining us and I can welcome as you drop in. So throughout we'll be answering questions and responding to comments as they come up. So feel free to drop those in the chat at any time. And otherwise, just enjoy learning a little bit about local in-season fruits and vegetables coming from Maryland this year. So today we are joined by Pam Hossamer. Pam is a nutrition educator with Maryland Snap Ed in Montgomery County, Maryland. So welcome, Pam. This is your first time on Fresh from Maryland. And typically we start off with a farmer's market shout out. So can you give us a farmer's market shout out for Montgomery County?
Good morning. I am going to give you a farmer's market shout out for Casey's Farmer's Market. Casey's Market is open on Thursdays from 11 to 2:30. They're open all the way through November 18th every week. And then they're going to be having monthly markets through the winter. Casey Community Center is the home of the market. They're behind the community center in the parking lot at 810 South Frederick Avenue in Gaithersburg. They will also match your FNMP checks and the Scenic View Orchard farm will also match your SNAP purchases up to $10. And today they are having some community outreach to a local camp where they will be having a field trip for the campers at the market today. They will be giving them Snap Ed market scavenger hunts to do, and they will be giving each camper a book about healthy eating. And the city is going to provide each camper with a voucher to buy a fruit or a vegetable from the market. Now, any child who comes to the market can go to the market manager's booth and request a scavenger hunt and get one of the healthy eating books as well. Also, the market is sponsoring a buy local challenge scavenger hunt during the month of July. Check out their website and Facebook page for more details and what they're going to be having going on in August.
Wonderful. That is so much fun, the stuff going on at Casey Farmers Market, in addition to accepting benefits, which is wonderful for those of you who are watching who might have EBT or PEBT or WIC farmers markets checks. That's wonderful. Also Scenic View Orchards, we're going to be featuring them in a week or two, I believe, when we talk about peppers, because they grow some special varieties of peppers that are of interest to different cultures. And also just to know that they're making it a fun outing. So that's part of going to the farmers market, is knowing that it's not just buying groceries, it's having a fun experience for your family. So
at the Casey markets, Chris, they have been really doing a lot of new community outreach. So I just want folks who are listening to know that the market is really trying to get the community to come to the market and be involved.
Oh, wonderful. I'd like to welcome Terry, welcome Stephanie. I saw you guys pop in. So we're about to get into the action here. So Pam, talk to us about the vegetable of the week. I am really excited about this one because I say that every week, but I am genuinely excited. I think this is a produce item that is often not well understood. So what's our vegetable du jour? And I think you can go ahead and turn on your cooking camera.
Okay.
As you can see, we've got some sophisticated technology setups here. There we go.
Is that it?
There you go.
The camera is on. All right. So I'm going to show you first some samples of eggplant. Can we see these 3 that I put on my?
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, so this here is your typical shape and color that most people think of. But there are also other types of eggplants that are a slimmer shape and a light lavender colored eggplant as well. The eggplant comes in also green or white or even striped. And as you can see, it comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes. Eggplant, should I talk about how they can be eaten?
Absolutely.
Eggplant can be eaten pan fried, stir fried, baked, grilled, roasted, or sauteed. It's a super flexible food, and the meaty texture makes it a great substitute for meat in dishes. You also may want to soak a large eggplant in water for 15 minutes or peel the skin, because that can sometimes have bitter compounds in it. But keep in mind that many newer varieties have good flavor without bitterness, and they are harvested on, especially if they're harvested on time, that prevents the bitterness and the toughness of the inside of the eggplant. Now, eggplant itself is over 90% water, and sometimes you might have heard people recommend salting the slices or cubes for a couple hours before cooking. I haven't found that to be necessary lately because the newer varieties are very tender and the skin is even very tender. So I wouldn't, if you buy something at the farmer's market or the grocery store, I really wouldn't worry about it during the growing season. But if you do salt it, you need to rinse it well to wash off the salt and drain it and pat it dry before cooking. So that pretty much covers everything about this. Storage. Short-term storage for eggplants, you would store them in a cool spot away from direct sunlight, then use them as soon as possible. You may also store an eggplant in a refrigerator crisper for up to 5 days, but don't use an eggplant if you see soft spots or the internal flesh has become beige or discolored. That means it's gone bad. Now, long-term storage is good news because eggplant can be frozen. You can freeze grilled eggplant in freezer bags for up to 8 months, or you can freeze raw eggplant slices and then use them later for frying, soups, sauces, and dips. You select an eggplant that is firm with the top calyx, which is the leaves on the very top of the plant, that are fresh and green, not brown or dry. And avoid buying an eggplant that has cracks or discolorations.
Yeah, and this comes up over and over on Fresh from Maryland, but one of the things we often talk about is that so many of these things, if you are able to get them locally from the farmer's market, those have been picked, sometimes that morning, sometimes just the day before. So some of those things, like, you don't even have to worry about. One thing I always look for is a nice shiny eggplant. They tend to, I think, get duller the older they are. So if you can get a nice shiny eggplant, a lot of those things about, peeling and salting, or just don't have to worry about them. So one of the advantages.
And there's one other fun fact I found out about eggplants. Thomas Jefferson brought the eggplant to America in the early 1800s, but they were only used ornamentally here until the early 1900s. Chinese and Italian immigrants during that period, with their long tradition of using eggplant in their cooking, popularized the use of eggplants. So that's why we use them so much today.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for that. Well, let's go ahead and get cooking. What are we making today and what do we need?
We are going to make crispy, crunchy eggplant sticks. And what we need for that is we need a large eggplant right here. And we need cooking oil spray or parchment paper. Now, I use parchment paper on my cooking trays because it's much easier to clean up and the eggplant sticks don't stick to the pan. So that makes it a lot easier. But one note, do not use wax paper. Don't confuse wax paper and parchment paper, because then you'll be roasting the eggplant in the oven when the wax paper catches fire. So that's usually not recommended. Then we have 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil, salt and pepper to taste, 1 large egg, a tablespoon of low-fat milk, 1 cup of seasoned breadcrumbs, and a 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And I do want to say, if you can buy the pre-grated Parmesan cheese at the store, or if you grate your own, I do, because it saves money to just buy the block of cheese and grate it myself. But if you grate it yourself, it's best to use, if you have a box grater, use the really tiny holes to make the really finely grated Parmesan cheese, so that that will stick nicely to the eggplant sticks. So there we go. That's what we have for our ingredients. Shall we get started, Krista?
Go for it, yeah.
All right, so first we're going to cut the eggplant into finger-sized sticks. Now I just cut the top off. I just bought this at a farmer's market, which was really nice. The seeds also in an eggplant are usually very soft and extremely edible also. I cut the eggplant in slices. You can do it however you think is best. This will be about 3 slices, and then I just cut them into long sticks.
So you sometimes will see these longer, thinner eggplant referred to as Japanese eggplant or Asian eggplant. And these are a really nice variety with thinner skins, and also tend to have sort of smaller, less mature seeds, which again is a good thing to look for.
Right, and then if you cut them too short, then they kind of, they will shrink when they're in the oven. So I cut them just about halfway, like this, and have extra long eggplant sticks here, which I will throw in a bowl, because then the next step is to, in a small bowl, crack an egg and add your milk. And beat it lightly. This will be the egg batter that you're going to dip it in first.
So this will look familiar to you anytime in any recipe that uses a breading technique. And while, you know, we call these crispy crunchy eggplant sticks. You could even, if you were serving them to your kids, call them eggplant fries. They're not fried, but you know, you could sell them that way. But you're going to use the egg to sort of wet the surface and then apply the breading, which you do in a lot of other recipes that use a breading.
Right. Speaking of the breading, you are going to take the next put a shallow dish or a large wide dish and take the breadcrumbs. I use the Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. You can use plain, or you can add your favorite types of seasoning to it. And then add the Parmesan cheese and mix that up. Then we're going to take the eggplant sticks, add the oil to them, pour that over, add a little pepper and a little salt, and mix that up. Get it coated with the oil. Okay, and then we're going to try dipping a few eggplant sticks at a time. Few eggplant sticks at a time into the egg batter. And then drop them into the it can get a little messy.
And that's perfectly all right.
All right, so here I try this shaking method. Where am I on the camera? There we go. Because it covers the sticks, and then I can just pop them out and put them on the cooking sheet.
I like that method. I tend to do a slightly messier method and end up with very gummy fingers, but I like this method. Speaking of breadcrumbs, something I've been doing lately is I've been just saving the heels of bread that, you know, you don't always want in your sandwiches. I'll stick them in a bag in a freezer. When I have a bunch of them, I then lay them out and just let them dry till they're kind of, you know, dried out. And then you have to have I have this little mini food processor. So if you don't have that, that won't work. But I then stick them in there, and then I make my own breadcrumbs, and I can make it with whole wheat bread. And then they're, you know, it's food that I might have otherwise gone to waste. So if you want to try that. And then I keep my breadcrumbs in the freezer because it's not something I use a ton of, and then I'm able to keep them longer.
So that's how easy this is to bread these up and put them on the cooking sheet.
While we're watching you, just want to welcome Jovi, welcome Dana. All right, if you have favorite ways to eat eggplant, you can drop those into the comments. I'd love to hear that.
You know, eggplant makes a wonderful addition to a summer stew. If you have a lot of vegetables like zucchini and tomatoes and onion, it's really delicious and easy to make a stew and include eggplant in it.
And it gets super tender and silky when it's in a preparation like that. And the fresh ones can have a surprisingly bit of sweetness to them as well.
They do. And the skin is really, you don't even taste it at all. It's very tender and soft, especially when it's cooked. Okay, let's see, we have almost done here. And sometimes if you have, I found that when I have a really big eggplant, you can end up with an awful lot of eggplant sticks. The first time I made this, I used a really large eggplant, and it made 2 full trays of sticks. And I ended up having to make a second egg wash, you know, add another egg or 2 to be able to coat the eggplant sticks and have enough batter. But the nice thing is that the eggplant sticks are a wonderful addition to a summer party or barbecue, because you can make them on a couple trays, pop them in the oven, they're ready in 10 minutes, and it feeds a huge crowd. So it's going to be my new favorite thing for summer. So I'm going to pop these into the oven for 10 minutes.
Wonderful. Yeah. And like you said, well, it's a recipe and it's got amounts attached to it. It's really more just sort of a method. Dip them in some egg wash, some beaten egg with a little milk in it, toss them with the breadcrumbs and cheese. And the amounts aren't really as important as long as you have enough to coat your eggplant. So right. Well, that looks wonderful. Can't wait to see the finished product. While we are waiting for that, we are joined by Susan Eisendrath, who is a Maryland Master Gardener in Montgomery County. So we've invited Susan here today to talk to us a little bit about growing eggplant. So we've talked some about gardening. One thing we always want to remind folks of is that you can use your SNAP benefits to buy vegetable plants if the vendor accepts SNAP. So if a grocery store is selling seedlings, or better yet, if a farmer's market and there's a farmer that accepts SNAP, you can use your benefits to buy those seedlings because those seedlings turn into food. So Susan, can you talk to our viewers a little bit about growing eggplant if they are curious about this, this wonderful food?
Sure. Thanks for inviting me today. And I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite plants. And eggplant is a wonderful plant to grow. You can, as you said, you can grow them from seeds, but they're much easier to just buy the seedlings, and the SNAP benefits you can use at farmers markets and garden stores. They are a summer loving plant. They love hot weather, and it's best to get seedlings that are at least around 6 inches tall, since they're stronger plants, like this one. Could you show the first slide?
Yeah.
This is one of the plants that I grew from seed, and I probably put it in the ground around, you're supposed to be planting seedlings from around May 15th to June 15th. But I can tell you that if you find an eggplant that is larger than this and actually flowering, you can still put it in your garden beds, or you can also grow them in containers. They do like full sun, so 8 hours of sun. So if you have a garden or a deck area that does not get, and the area, there's only one area that gets that full sun, you can actually plant them in the container and put them right in the full sun area.
Sometimes that full sun area moves too, as the sun moves throughout the season. So that's the nice thing about a container, is you can move it to where it's getting the most sun on a given day.
Exactly, it's flexible. If you are planting them in the garden, they should be spaced about 20 inches apart, because they can get quite big, and you want to leave room enough for them to be able to produce, a lot of fruit. They don't have many pests, but flea beetles do love to chew on their leaves. Next slide, please. As you can see on this leaf, it looks like, oh my gosh, it's just riddled with flea beetle chewing on it. But it will still produce, even though it has all of these holes on it. And that's why it's important to plant larger seedlings, about the 6 inch tall, because the leaves are actually hardened enough to take the flea beetles, even if they're chomping on them. If you could show the next slide. Here's a picture of the plants that I'm growing right now. You can see that the one on the right is not quite ready to harvest. Once it gets maybe about twice that size, because that's a long eggplant. The one on the left is the large, they're called Black Beauty, big eggplants. And I think Pam showed you one of those. But you can see my plants are pretty tall right now. They're maybe in the 2.5, 3 feet tall range. And so even though they're being eaten by flea beetles, they're still producing. If you could show the next slide. This is another way that you can protect from flea beetles. On the left, that's a row cover that's going over my eggplant. They're growing inside of there, and you can see I've taken off the row cover on the right, and I have some really healthy eggplant that are growing, and they have not been eaten by many flea beetles because of those row covers. So when do you harvest them? It takes about 1 to 1.5 months for eggplants to fully form after planting the seedlings. And they're ready when they're about as big as what you see in the store. Next slide, please. This is an eggplant flower, and if you're using row covers, once you start to see the flowers, you want to take off the row covers, because those flowers need to be pollinated by bees and other insects. Very pretty flower. And next one. And this is one of my favorite recipes. Pam is cooking some really delicious recipes. If I'm making eggplant parmesan, I'm going to make 2 of them so I can freeze them. Really yummy way to do it, and I do it right in the pan, as you can see. I hope everyone watching this will enjoy growing and eating eggplants. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. I did have a comment earlier that I missed from Teresa, who commented on what a loss it was that there was 100 years of growing eggplant in the United States before it was used in our cooking. You can see they're very pretty plants, flea beetle damage notwithstanding. And that's a fun part about growing too, is it can be, our food plants can be beautiful as well as producing delicious food. So let's go back to Pam and see how those crispy, crunchy eggplant sticks are looking. Right, Pam, what do you got?
Well, the ones that I just put in the oven, they are still cooking. They have about 4 more minutes. But I have, through the magic of TV, a sample of the ones that I cooked yesterday that look really good. All set.
Yeah, beautiful browning on those. So the combination of the cheese and the egg and the breadcrumbs gives us a beautiful brown color. So hope you guys try this recipe. Look for eggplant at local farmers market or even at your grocery store. They might have some local eggplant as well. And then let's look at what's coming up next in Fresh from Maryland. So we're wrapping up the season series, and we'll soon be announcing what we're going to be featuring for our fall Facebook Lives. But next week is going to be melons on August 5th. We're going to be talking about melons. We're also going to have a little tour of a farm that produces melons, watermelons, and others. And then on August 12th, we're going to be talking about peppers. I have to say the smell of peppers is something that is just so summery to me, and I just love them. I think they're wonderful. So if you're watching this live on Facebook, you've found our Facebook page, but make sure you've liked our page and you turn on notifications so that you get a reminder when we've got a episode coming on. Other places to find us on the internet is our Eat Smart page. Pull that up. All right, so extension.umd.edu/eatsmart, that is our recipe site. There's also other resources for healthy eating there as well, but our recipe database is extensive. All the recipes we do on Fresh from Maryland are there. They're healthy, and we have beautiful pictures there now. Our old site did not have pictures, and you can search by ingredient, which is a really handy thing to do this time of year. Facebook page is there, and then we do archive all of these episodes on YouTube, and on YouTube you'll also be able to find nutrition education lesson videos, other like 2-minute recipe videos, and lots of other resources. How to buy, store, and prepare a whole range of different produce items, all in little short videos. So please check us out on the internet, and make sure you mark your calendars to be back here next Thursday. In the meantime, Pam, let's take one last look at those beautiful crispy crunchy eggplant sticks. Those look delicious, and I see you're serving them there with a little
marinara sauce.
Wonderful. And this is something you could take the flavor in a lot of directions. It's a pretty neutral flavor. Or you could create something with sort of Asian flavors, just going in sort of an Italian direction. Wonderful. Please try this recipe. Let us know on our social media. You can post a comment on the video once it's saved. You can post a comment once you tried it and let us know how you liked it. And join us back here next week on Thursday at 11 o'clock to talk about melons. Thanks so much and have a great week.